I'm lost. I'm confused. I don't know where to turn. I can't take it anymore. I quit. I don't know how I'm supposed to keep going. I'm just hurting and I'm clueless as to how to snap out of it. These are things I'm sure we've all said, or at least felt at certain points in life. Moments where really hard things have happened or are happening. And there's a general heaviness and a figurative dark cloud hanging over us. And what I think makes it worse, so much worse, is the fact that more often than not, life doesn't give us a chance to hit the pause button, to take a moment to catch our breath, to rest and then regroup, and then reemerge into the world feeling more collected, prepared, and put together. No. Often life hits us in the gut. We double over, we find ourselves reeling in pain, and then seconds later, we have to head off to work, or prepare dinner, or finish chores around the house, or study for an upcoming exam. It's literally the worst. Oftentimes we can just feel trapped. On Friday, these moments of desperation and feeling on the verge of despair, yet being forced to keep going, right? These moments came to mind as the Passion according to John was being proclaimed right here in the church during the Good Friday service. The lines that jumped out at me were something I'd never really considered before. Right? St. John reports that after Jesus' death, Joseph of Arimathea, a disciple of Jesus, asked Pilate for Jesus' body, and the permission was granted. We're told that Nicodemus also came, bringing with him 100 pounds of aloes and myrrh. They then took the body of Jesus, bound it with burial cloths, along with spices, according to the Jewish burial custom, and they laid his body in the tomb. I want to ask you for a moment just to place yourselves in their shoes. Right? Their Lord, their hope, their inspiration, their friend, had just not only been killed and murdered, but he had been humiliated, spat upon, beaten, and mocked in the process. Jesus was gone, their confidence would have been shattered. They would have been grieving and deeply, deeply mourning. And at the same time, themselves struck with fear for their future. And in the midst of this, while probably wanting to curl up in a corner in the fetal position and simply cry for the next 3 days, they stood up, put one foot in front of the other in order to just keep going. They then prepared Jesus' body for burial, bound it with cloths, and placed his body in the tomb. To put this into perspective, imagine if you had a dear, dear loved one pass away. And if in the time leading up to the funeral, rather than being gathered with family and friends for support, and having the funeral home take care of things, if you had to do everything to prepare the body in the midst of your pain. And I know that's probably an extreme example, but it's exactly what they had to do. Again, our situations and our circumstances may be very different, but nevertheless, in our own lives, we have to continue forward, pull it together, and keep functioning somehow in the midst of this intense and heavy, lingering darkness. Fast forward a few days later, Mary Magdalene was coming to the tomb with more spices, more work to do in the midst of her mourning. When she arrived at the tomb, she saw that the stone had been rolled away. Her immediate first reaction was to think that somebody had stolen the body. So she ran off, and that's exactly what she reported to Peter and John, who themselves took off running. They got to the tomb, John first, then Peter. And as John was waiting for Peter, he took in some of the details. Right? From the doorway, he kind of bent down, he looked, and he saw the burial cloths there. Kind of like how sometimes we're doubled over and we see part of the picture as we try to figure things out. Peter finally catches up and goes into the tomb, and John follows. And upon seeing things from inside the tomb, we're told that John sees and believes. Here's what I want to point out. Mary stands outside the tomb. She gets the whole thing wrong. She doesn't grasp the truth of the resurrection. Then John stands outside the tomb, and he doesn't see the truth. Then John goes inside. And from inside the tomb, John sees and believes. It is only from inside that we can grasp the truth. It is only from ourselves hurting deeply, deeply, that the resurrection impacts us and matters on the level that it has to. I'll tell you that the resurrection didn't simply allow a handful of people who were feeling pretty good to suddenly become even more joyful and turn their good into great. It wasn't good to great. No. It allowed individuals who were hurting so bad. And it flipped the whole thing on its head. And the bottom line is that spiritually speaking, this same exact thing happens in our lives. Right? Even if on the surface we do feel like we're doing pretty good. All of us here, at one point in our lives, were spiritually dead. And through Jesus' gift of the resurrection that we experience today, we know that new life is born. So we can rejoice at this life-changing transformation. The deeper we hurt, the more the resurrection means. The more that you've endured, the greater today ought to be. Here's what I'll say. Unfortunately, some people leave the tomb without ever going inside of it. They experience and they encounter death, but they walk away from it and they walk away from the pain without giving Jesus Christ the time to perform his miracle and to make himself known. We need to welcome the resurrected Lord into our lives and into our very deepest areas of pain. We need to step inside the tomb to see and to believe. Now here's where it gets good. Really, really good. At that point, inside the tomb, we're told that John saw and believed. But what was it that he saw? I'll tell you what he didn't see. He didn't see Jesus. He didn't see a body. He would see Jesus eventually down the road, but in that moment, he didn't see Jesus there in the tomb. He saw signs and indications that led him to believe that Jesus had risen. Going inside the tomb and all that came with that allowed him to perceive that Christ was present and alive. But it was only after getting up and himself leaving the tomb that he eventually saw Christ. So where does this leave us? Well, my dear brothers and sisters, my dear brothers and sisters, this leaves us with a huge capacity to rejoice today on Easter Sunday. See, if we take everything that I've said so far and we wrap it all together, we get a messy but beautiful mixture of pain, hope, confusion, joy, glory, emptiness, fullness, and resurrection. In other words, we get a full spectrum of the human experience. The human experience that God himself chose to live precisely so that at the end he could share his resurrection with us. So here it is, all packaged together. Sometimes life punches us in the gut and we don't know how to keep going. It's almost as if we're crucified and left hanging, seemingly dying in pain. But somehow we have to keep going. If we simply try to keep going without bringing our pain and our struggles to Christ, we're going to miss out on the truth of the fact that he redeems our suffering. He makes sense of it. He gives it purpose. So yes, we do have to keep going when we might want to stop. But what we have to do as we keep going is we have to go to the tomb. Every single time that we hurt, we have to run to the tomb. And we have to run inside of it so that we can be reminded that it's empty. To be reminded that things that feel like death don't need to end there. We need to fully go into the tomb. To not avoid the fact that sometimes it feels like a part of us is dying. Okay, part of us is dying, and that hurts. And it's really hard to take. And perhaps we say to ourselves, any combination of the things I started this whole homily with. Go to the tomb. Go inside. Be reminded that Jesus isn't there, but that he was. The key is knowing that he was buried there. He truly and fully died, but that he rose. Jesus is alive. That he is now calling you to come out from the tomb. Just like he did when he called his friend Lazarus back to life to come out of the tomb. And that he is now calling your name. Right now, Jesus is calling your name lovingly and compassionately. Right now. So that you can come forward out of the tomb. So you can continue forward believing that he is risen and that he is present in your life. Perhaps it still hurts as you emerge. But if you keep going, you will eventually see him. Just like how Peter and John eventually saw him after coming out of the tomb. I'll say it one more time. It was from inside the tomb that they came to believe, but only after emerging and continuing forward that they actually saw Jesus himself. And we, my dear brothers and sisters, need to do the same. And what we will find when we come out from the tomb is that things are still hard, but we'll see a purpose to it. And we'll have hope. And we will eventually see Jesus. And he will smile at us. And he will embrace us. And he will assure us of his presence and his support. All the while, we will be soaking in this overwhelming and transforming love. And at that point, we'll see the scars in his hands, his feet, and his side. We'll see those scars and be reminded that his resurrection is lived out and able to be experienced right in the middle of our pain. That in these moments when we're tempted to say, I'm lost, I'm confused, I don't know where to turn, I just can't take it anymore, I quit, I don't know how I'm supposed to keep going, I'm just hurting and clueless as to how to snap out of it. In these moments, we'll be able to look at the big picture of the human experience, and we will be able to say, just as boldly as we say, I'm lost and confused and I'm hurting, we will be able to say, I know a man who was in a tomb, who experienced death, who rose from the dead, who walked out from that tomb, scars and all, and who from that moment forward has brought life and love to others in a way beyond imagining. And you'll be able to say, I am going to choose to do the same. Because I feel like I'm in the tomb. But I believe that Jesus is calling me forward. That he doesn't want me to stay here because he has a mission for me. A mission to get up and to live. And to love those whom I will encounter as I go out with nothing less than the resurrected life of Jesus Christ himself alive in my soul and in my veins. So yes, we do have to keep going. We have to keep going, but not because we don't have a choice. We have to keep going because we've been given a mission. To allow our hearts and our spirits to be truly raised up, to live our own resurrection each and every day of our lives. To those of you who are deeply, deeply hurting right now, know that you are being given the opportunity to understand the resurrection in a greater way than those who may be hurting less. That Jesus is inviting you to experience a greater resurrection and a deeper union with his love. My dear brothers and sisters, go into the tomb. Acknowledge the pain, the hurts, and the wounds that have been inflicted upon you in your life. And let Jesus roll the stone away. Hear him call your name and come forward joyfully, living his life within you as you emerge forth. And then take the first step of your resurrection, followed by the next, and then the next. And walk your living life of faith, seeing, believing, and clinging to hope like never before. So that you can daily say, in the midst of whatever circumstances you have, that you can say, I believe. I'm not afraid. Jesus is with me. Everything is going to be okay. I'm going to be all right. I am loved. I am valued. I will heal. I have a Savior who has risen from the tomb, who calls my name, who knows every detail of my life, every detail of my heart, every detail of my circumstances. I have a Savior who says, come out from your tomb. Come out from your darkness. See, believe, and live.